Hey guys, Texans lose 14-9 to the Los Angeles Rams at SoFi Stadium, and the reasons for the defeat are numerous, but let's go through a lot of the key factors in this game. I'll bring you some of the post-game locker room reaction and my takes on why the Texans still have a chance to be a solid football team and build on this. They lost by 5 points. They didn't get blown out. The Rams are a well-coached, talented football team with a veteran quarterback, and I think a lot of the errors the Texans had are correctable. There's still some personnel issues, and we'll get through those as well. And I'll start with the offensive line. I thought that kind of got the season off to a rough start, and here's why. So you prepared Ed Ingram to be the right guard. You wanted Titus Howard to be the right tackle, and then when Ingram can't play due to an abdomen injury or a stomach muscle issue, he wasn't moving very well. On Friday, he made the trip and he tried to play, and they determined that it wasn't a good idea for him to try to go out there, that he just wouldn't be healthy enough to move well and do all the things an offensive lineman needs to do. Okay, so Titus Howard goes to right guard as you institute a line shuffle, and then you flop Ariante Ursary, who had been established as the starting left tackle, to right tackle. And then Laken Tomlinson, obviously he stays at left guard, former Pro Bowl blocker, and center Jake Andrews. So that's how you begin the game. And it wasn't like they were just, beat like a drum by the Rams pass rush. Jared Verse actually had a pretty quiet game. They had some issues with Byron Young, who ran over Ursary and one sack on CJ Stroud. There was a overload safety blitz where the Rams got in there. And then there was another one where I thought that was on CJ, where he kind of just rolled into a sack. But they did allow a lot of pressure on 41.2% of the dropbacks according to Next Gen Stats. So it was leaky, and then it got worse. And they had some calamity in terms of personnel issues. What you had happen was the center, Jake Andrews, was carted off the field. First they call it an ankle injury, but DeMeco Ryans says it's a foot injury. Here's what I know. Per a source, it's serious enough he's going to have an MRI on Monday. So we'll see how bad is it for Jake Andrews. And next man up, short term and possibly long term, is Jared Patterson. At least he has some background with CJ Stroud. So, there's some chemistry, and he has an ability to snap, and he knows the line calls. He's a smart technician of a blocker. But Andrews got you more push, and now they've got an offensive line issue. So I thought they handled that as best as they could, but it's less than ideal when you're trying to build a passing game. So those were some of the problems that the Texans had just on that side of the football. I didn't think they were stubborn enough with the running game. I know they wanted to try to throw a little bit more, but look at some of the success they had running the football. I'd be more glass half full on the running game with Nick Chubb. So Chubb winds up with, rushing for 60 yards on 13 carries, averages 4.6. He averages for his career 5.1. So he had a 13-yard run. They got some rushing yards out of CJ Stroud, including one 14-yard scramble. The other running backs, not good. So Dario Moale, 2 runs, 9 yards, and he fumbled. It was a pivotal fumble. We'll get more into that. I think it was one of the key play of the game. And then Dameon Pierce, who's rusty, I think, 5 yards on 3 runs. And then Woody Marks, 3 runs, 3 yards. So not much for those other backs. They had trouble establishing their go-to guy. They were able to take away, without any really star defensive backs, Nico Collins gets 3 catches on 25 yards on 5 targets. They got to get him more involved. I guarantee that will be a big theme of the week, that they got to get him more involved. That interception by Kobe Durant, outstanding play. He made a play, but he also took the football away from Jaden Higgins, who's a big, strong kid, and he's got to be able to take the ball and hold on to it, get the ball, and not let that guy get that interception. At least make sure that he doesn't pick the football off if you can't get it. So he gets 2 catches for 32 yards. He made some plays. There was a 23-yard catch. Iowa State, Xavier Hutchinson, 23-yard catch. And then they got the tight ends a little more involved. Dalton Schultz, 3 catches, 28 yards on 5 targets. And then Cade Stover, 4 catches on 22 yards on 4 targets. And he got dinged. There's something going on with him now. He was in a boot after the game in the locker room. So we'll see how serious it is. So there's some injuries, and they've got some, definitely some personnel issues there, like I said, with the offensive line. But There was a point where, just you think about this overriding theme. The Texans couldn't finish. They didn't finish. They settled for 3 field goals. You got to get 6 points, not 3 points. And the Texans settled for those Kaimi Fairburn field goals, and they didn't get the job done as an offense. And if I had to say it was more culpable than anybody, it's the offense. The Texans, as a defense, they primarily did their job. They could have done a much better job, I thought, on Puka Nacua. But overall, the offense, there's some things that they came up short on. So Azeez Al-Shaair made a great play, forcing the fumble. There's 4 minutes left. They get the football back, and then the drive is going well. And Nate Landman, the linebacker for the Rams, punches the ball out from Darga Mawale, and that was really the game-clinching turnover. So that was a very, very bad play. And to me, kind of really the play of the game, because there was the roughing the passer penalty, and then CJ capitalizes by finding Darga Mawale underneath, and then you have the fumble. Braden Fisk picks it up at the 24-yard line. I thought the Texans were going to go in and score and have the go-ahead touchdown. They were rolling, and that was it. The Texans called timeout a couple of times. Then Matthew Stafford hits Puka Nacua for 24 yards, 3rd and 8. That really just put it away. And all game, they've had some issues. This time, though, they had set the table. They would have had 3 timeouts, less than 20 yards from the touchdown, from getting into the end zone. And this was a great drive for the Texans. And as Darga Mawale said afterward, he's very accountable, stand-up guy. It's his job to hold on to the ball. He's wrecked. He's absolutely very upset about this, as you would imagine, a very accountable veteran. And he says he'll have to not dwell on this and move on to the next thing. He's never been a fumbler. I don't think of him as a fumbler, but he is a running back who did fumble. So the fumble is a tough moment for him. And there were some other tough moments. So the secondary, which has been, obviously we've talked very well about them and how good they are and how good they can be. Against a good veteran quarterback today, it wasn't great, especially the second half. Matthew Stafford, just 2 incompletions in the second half alone. 13 for 15 after halftime, 172 yards, and that touchdown pass. So he was just slicing the Texans up. There was a 36-yard pass to Xavier Smith. There was a 13-yard touchdown to Davis Allen back in the end zone. Looked like there were some busted coverages. And as DeMeco said, they just go down there and score on you. You got to stand up and make a play. And eye discipline. He did not think they played with great eye discipline. There were a lot of guys looking in the backfield, their eyes on the right spot, looking in the backfield when throwing the football, and that leaves guys wide open. And that's exactly what happened. So he diagnosed that absolutely correctly. You could even see it from the press box or on television. Wherever you're watching from, you could see that the Texans had some defensive lapses. And you see what happens. They have the ball, and then Jalen Petrie gets beat in man coverage, and that puts the game away. They were 7 for 13 on 3rd down. So 3rd down, as DeMeco Ryans says, was not good enough for him, not good enough for anybody. Opportunities to go off the field on 3rd down, they didn't make the plays. And that got out of hand for the Texans. So did the penalties. And he says that is completely unacceptable and controllable. And that's some things that can be shored up. Tackling, another problem. Texans were not good tacklers in this game, with the exception of a few guys, but there was too many tackles. And the pass protection issue, like I said, 41.2% pressure package on C.J. Stroud. They got to him, and that was an ugly play with Byron Young, just kind of welcome to the NFL moment for Arion Ursary, who's a very good young tackle, but that was a tough moment for Ursary. Ugly to get bull rushed like that into the backfield and for C.J. Stroud to be sacked like that. So not good. They had the overload with Jalen McCullough, and then you had the other sack. But, there were some things where C.J. said, some of those are on him in terms of fronts and identified correctly, but he missed a couple, and he says those are things that led to points as far as not having the points. And the injury issue, injuries happen, and they said no excuses, no complaints, don't make excuses about having to shuffle. They did dodge a bullet, and that was early in the game where Derek Stingley Jr. is tackling Devontae Adams. He was doing a good job on Adams. And then Henry To'oTo'o makes the tackle, but Adams falls, and then you see Stingley fall kind of in a strange manner, a little unorthodox way he fell, and he grabs his hip. and he was able to run off the field. He eventually gets up. And I think crisis averted because he went back in the game after going to the blue medical tent, and he finished the game. And he says he feels fine. So we talked to him afterward, and he assured everyone that he's okay. If they didn't have Stingley, the $90 million man, the all-pro corner, I don't know where this season's going to go as a defense. That is a tough deal. They did put in Jalen Smith, and they just have the 4 corners on the active roster, and you have Damon Arnett on the practice squad along with D'Angelo Ross. So you can't lose Stingley. But yeah, they involved the tight ends, like I said, more. They did a few other things, but they had 11 penalties for 80 yards. So both sides of the ball. There were 7 penalties on offense, 4 penalties on defense. So there were false starts. Blake Fisher, who came into the game, and Cam Robinson was briefly injured, had a penalty. So that's not good. And then you look at overall, just too many unforced errors, and it's not good enough. So I think about what quarterback did. I thought that C.J. Stroud did a good job of eluding pressure. He was a good scrambler, but a couple times he ran into pressure, and so there were some long sacks. They were not good in the red zone. They were 0 for 1 in the red zone. Overall, C.J. was 19 of 27, 188 yards, and an interception, and I know he can play better than that. I don't think that's really vintage C.J. Stroud, and not the kind of homecoming he wanted. He's from the Inland Empire. He's from Rancho Cucamonga, California. Had a lot of family and friends here today. And it's a disappointing outcome for C.J. and for the entire offense. Like I said, with the running game, more Chubb. I think that's what you need. And no one's counting on Joe Mixon right now. Obviously, he's on the non-football injury list. Don't know when he's going to play. Don't know if he'll play. Very much a question mark. But I think Chubb showed you can get by with Chubb, but you're going to have a better passing game. So this offensive line, didn't do a lot of favors for C.J., but it's not like it was terrible. It was passable, and maybe when they get back Ingram and they put, Titus Howard back at right tackle and Ursher gets comfortable at left tackle, maybe this can be a good offensive line. Right now, work in progress. They're not there. Maybe not as bad as last year, but that's really grading them on a curve. It was a little bit better, but a little bit better is not what people are looking for. They were looking for a lot better, and it wasn't there. Nico's involvement, that's strange to me. They got to game plan that better. I thought Nick Caley, though, less predictable than Bobby Slowick. I liked overall the motions, things like that they would use. They did a decent job of trying to involve Jaden Higgins. More Higgins. Higgins can get it done. I know he can. Definitely a lot of confidence in Higgins. So there wasn't enough pass rush on Matthew Stafford. So overall, looking at the quarterback hits or lack thereof, there were 6, and there was 2 by Sheldon Rankins, and there was a couple from Will Anderson Jr., and, kind of a quiet day for Daniel Hunter, just 3 tackles, 1 solo, and did not have any TFLs, any sacks, any quarterback hits. Maybe they're concentrating on him. Henry To'oTo'o, he had the big hit on Puka Nacua. They checked him out for a concussion, and guess what? He has a cut on his eyebrow. He comes back in after getting cleared, and man, he was good. 10 catches, 130 yards on 11 targets. He was really, really good, and he has a lot of respect around the league, and he deserves it. He's a good football player. Everybody would love to have a Puka Nacua. Devontae Adams was mostly contained, and a lot of that coverage was from Derek Stingley Jr. So, 4 catches, 51 yards, 8 targets. Anybody will take that. That's good enough, absolutely. And then, you look at the running game. They were okay on Kyron Williams, who's a good back. 18 runs, 66 yards, 3.7 average. The 1 touchdown, which, they're in bad position there. And overall, I thought they did a pretty good job. As far as containing a Jared Verse, so Verse had a pretty quiet day with just the 1 quarterback hit. He didn't wreck the game, not at all. Far from it. I thought that they did a good job on Verse. So what's fixable, work on the penalties, work on the tackling, and work on the coverage and communication to get better. And they got to get better. They play Tampa Bay on Monday Night Football coming up. Baker Mayfield's coming to town, and Mike Evans from Galveston Ball High School in Texas A&M. And it's going to be a tough game for the Texans. This is no gimme at all. If anything, it'll be tough. I thought C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a little bit of rust, but overall decent. And definitely where they did a good job was finding a way to get Nakua isolated against players who normally can't cover a receiver as well, like the corners. And Jalen Petrie is one of those guys to give it that big first down. So good play calling by Sean McVay, and show why he's one of the best and why he's a Super Bowl coach. And it was like old times, him and DeMeco Ryans matching wits, and this time he got the win in his house, in the Rams' house here at SoFi Stadium. And we'll have more coverage in terms of locker room reaction. We'll give it to you all here on YouTube and, of course, at KPRC2 TV, where I was joined by Big Sarge. You see Big Sarge behind me? Look at Big Sarge. Shout out Big Sarge. What's going on, Aaron? All right. Appreciate you, Sarge. So Sarge came on with me and Randy, and we'll have that for you tonight. And, of course, we got you covered at www.click2houston.com. I got the red-eye flight home, and my wife and I, she came on the trip with me. She's out shopping, and I'm working, and that's the way it should be. But we're going to have, it's a long season, and there's more to come, and it's just one game. But I can only say that so many times. It's just one game. But they got a lot of football left to play, and they got to play some better football. Guys, thanks so much. Signing off from SoFi Stadium, and we'll talk to you soon.